across the earth abroad, that he will wake up the nations of the whole earth. So this was this vision Joseph Smith had for how the Constitution would be saved. So why are we losing the freedom battle today? Because I really believe that the Lord has promised that if we have faith and we fight this battle the way the Lord has asked us to, we will win. This is not a losing cause. So how do we win the freedom fight? How do we turn this around? Well, if we go to the Book of Mormon, you'll notice something very interesting. We all know about Captain Moroni, and we all know about the title of liberty. When Captain Moroni gets up to talk to the Nephites, he doesn't get up there and he doesn't say, Amalickiah is destroying our Constitution and we need to save it. You know what he does? He gets up there and he says, all of you are a remnant of Joseph. All of you are descendants of Joseph in Egypt. And he says, that day, do you remember the imagery where Joseph was sold into slavery and his coat was torn and only a little piece remained? So Moroni says, just like that, you're that coat, and we will be rent if we do not keep our covenants, and only a small remnant will remain. But he says, if we keep our covenants, then that remnant will be preserved. So he says, Nephites, rise up. Let us preserve our liberty as a remnant of Joseph. It's very interesting. He says a remnant of Joseph. And this is something that I'm just going to throw out. You guys can study it more in detail when you want. This is Jst Genesis 48. You got to read the JST version. This is what Joseph Smith stuck back into Jacob's blessing when he blesses Ephraim and Manasseh. And then he turns to Joseph and he says, I'm taking Ephraim and Manasseh as my sons, right? Jacob essentially adopted Ephraim and Manasseh. They became Israel's sons. They weren't Joseph's sons anymore. But Jacob turns to Joseph and he says, your children that you have after them, after Ephraim and Manasseh, will be yours. And then he starts talking about these other children. This is absolutely fascinating. And it's important because what he says about those children, he says, those other children will be blessed above thy brethren, above the house of Israel, above thy father's house. That dream that Joseph had, where the whole house of Israel bowed down to him, Jacob says, that's about your other kids. They're going to be this seed that is going to continue. They're going to be a light. Their mission is to save the house of Israel from captivity and from bondage. So when Captain Moroni gets up and he says, we are a remnant of the seed of Joseph, I believe he didn't say Joseph for no reason. He said that for a specific reason, because he was saying, some of us are descendants of those kids that were told, you have to defend liberty. It's your duty, it's your covenant, it's your blood. Again, so I'm just going to skip here. Some of those DVDs, they're out there on the table. America's called the land of Joseph. If you think about it, Ephraim and Manasseh were given portions over in Palestine. It's still there today. You can look up the Bible maps. America's called the land of Joseph. Brigham Young actually has a statement where he separates the two, Ephraim versus Joseph. So we see this vision where the Lord is saying, this is why America, for people, there's this huge movement right now, actually, to downplay America. There's a huge movement right now saying we need to take out all of the American and patriotic hymns out of the hymn book, because how arrogant do we think we are? Why would those be on our hymn book? We're a worldwide church. Don't be so egotistical, right? That was nice when maybe the church was more local in the United States, but don't do it now. Is everyone talking about the founding fathers? That's nice, but that doesn't apply to everyone. And what we're seeing is it does apply to everyone, because no matter what country you come from, or no matter what nationality, the message of the last days is that Israel was scattered and Israel needs to be gathered again, not just a spiritual nice idea, but literally. Joseph William Smith said the vast majority of members of the church are literal descendants. That means if you do your genealogy back, your DNA, that blood you see in your body right now, literally came from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And missions run in families. So sometimes people will come to me and be like, well, I from a nasty background. Maybe my parents were converts or something where it was a bad situation. That's just not me. So how do we tell Israel besides just DNA or things like that? This is one thing I want to suggest. Have you ever felt like you were different? Like you just didn't fit in with everybody? I sometimes hear people saying, like, I need to find my tribe, or, oh, like, I love being with my people because they understand how I talk, right? I mean, because let's be honest, the fact that you're all sitting here today proves that you're weird. I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you, but if we did, like, a statistic here, you know, you're the minority here. So why do you care? I would guess, I'm going to make an assumption, but I'm pretty sure, 99% sure it's accurate, that most of you are different than a lot of your family. I'm going to guess that a lot of you probably didn't maybe grow up as crazy as you are today. How did you get so weird? I don't know. You were probably brainwashed. No, so what are you responding to when you hear truth and you just go, I know that's true. That's me. That's the real me. That's that Israel blood in you that's crying out, that's been hidden and suppressed. This is the symbolism of the acorn. You'll see this symbol all over Europe. It's the symbol of a hidden identity, this little acorn that's locked up and hidden and it doesn't know what it is. It needs to be broken out, and it's really this beautiful tree. It's this idea of, you know, if you think about all the books and literature, everything, even down to Harry Potter, Chronicles of Narnia, romantic literature in the 1800s, there's always this common theme about someone who doesn't know who they are. And then they find out, oh, I'm really a prince, or I'm really a queen, or I'm really an heir. And we love those stories. Why do we love those stories? Because our spirit's remembering something that we need to remember. So I just want to throw out a few things that I believe are Israelite characteristics. That when I see someone like this, I go, well, you don't even need to give me your DNA analysis because you're screaming your Israelite blood out. You believe in liberty and freedom. You want better holidays. You want to live higher standards. You want to eat better. You actually care about your family history. You know, some people don't care at all. And then you've got other people in China that are like, they've got it all the way back. And they like take it so serious. And you're like, why do you care? Right? You don't know why they care. I'll tell you why you care. It's because you have that Israelite blood. Israelites love to be independent. They just want to do things themselves, right? They want to be self-reliant. They love the gospel. So the fight for freedom has always been Israel's cause. It's always been connected. I talked a little bit already about Parthia. If you look at the Germanic tribes, you look in textbooks today, and they'll tell you that Rome was defeated by a bunch of smelly, barbaric tribes. I hate to break it to you, but that is not substantiated by the historical record. Those barbaric, smelly thug tribes were actually more technologically advanced, according to the archaeological record, than Rome was. Get into the original records, you know what happened? Rome's the tyrant. Rome is communism of the day. And you had all these Germanic tribes that were Israel, and they finally said, enough is enough. Stalin of the day is going down. We're putting an end to this. And they did. And we have a video called Nephites in Europe, and that's a whole nother subject, but I think there was some Nephite influence there behind that anyway. But up in Iceland, you had free government. A lot of people don't realize that the Reformation was actually founded. The same people behind the Reformation were the same ones behind the Founding Fathers. James Madison was related to the Taylor family of William Tyndale, who translated the Book of Mormon. The Puritans, the phrase, for the people, of the people, by the people, and for the people, right, Abraham Lincoln used, actually came from John Wycliffe. The whole idea of getting representation, trials, the king needing to follow laws came from William Tyndale. So we talk a lot about, it came from Greek thinkers and stuff, but if you actually do the history, most of it came from the Reformation, because the fight for freedom has always been Israel's cause. So I just want to close out with a thought. I think one of the things that can bring all of us together is realizing that all of us are Israelites, and we've got to remember who we are and come together. So these are pictures here of the Vietnamese that were trying to escape communism. It's a horrible, horrible story. They just died by the thousands. I was talking to my uncle the other night, and he served among the Hmong people in California, and he said, do you realize that all of the Hmong tribes around the world have been exterminated except for the few that made it to America? You might think, well, who cares? I'll tell you why it matters. A lot of those Hmong tribes were white-skinned with red hair and blue eyes. They had spiritual gifts going back in their families, visions, dreams. A lot of them all converted to the Bible. There's a reason. A very wise person once said, they said, if you want to know where Israel is, go follow the genocides. Who are the communists or the tyrants of history trying to exterminate? Go to the Burmese. The Burmese government right now, or Myanmar, as they rebranded themselves to cover up the genocide over there, they're trying to exterminate the Karen native tribes and other native tribes in Burma. You want to know why? Let me tell you about the Karen people. The Karen people have a tradition in their history that they're the descendants of the older brothers in a family who broke a covenant with God. But the younger brother kept his covenant with God and recorded down God's words on gold plates, which were buried. The Karen people say we're the descendants of the older brother. Our skin went dark, but God promised us that one day the younger brother, who was white-skinned, would bring us back the golden book. When the missionaries showed up in 1830, interesting, with the Bible, the Karen people go, is this the golden book? They're like, I don't know, sure, yeah, it's priceless, like gold, right? Some refugees came over of the Karen people a few years ago, ran into some missionaries, and they share the story. There's an article in the Meridian magazine, said that they started talking about the story of Joseph Smith, that he uncovered these golden plates, and here was the record that came from that, from these ancient forefathers in America, and the Spirit just came over this Karen lady, and she knew those were my people, and that is the golden book. That's why those tribes are trying to be exterminated. In Hungary, those brave freedom fighters stood up in 1956. President Benson said, America, go help them. And President Eisenhower did nothing. America did nothing. And they were slaughtered. You had kids, you had teenagers that were willing to stand up against those tanks, and they were abandoned. The same thing happened to the Hong Kong people. Those brave Israelites in Hong Kong were willing to stand up by the millions, and they were abandoned. Just this year, I've been impressed, all the protests going on in England and France. So, I'm going to close here. How do we save the Constitution? I want to submit to you a new formula. We need to awaken to our forgotten identity as Israel. We need to realize that Israel has certain covenants and certain lifestyles she's supposed to be living. We need to repent and start living those covenants. We need to gather our brothers and sisters from across the world, and we need to recognize that the Book of Mormon is the tool given in the last days to gather Israel. We need to recognize that Joseph Smith is the captain to save Israel and the Constitution, and we need to stand together one last time, because if we do not stand now, if the ball drops, it will be our responsibility, and we cannot let it drop. I just want to close with my personal story. As I mentioned, I